Let me ask you all a question. Do you think the power to see the future is a gift or a curse? Well, for the wizard Merlin, it was a gift all the way. Because the future he saw, he could twist to his advantage, with absolutely no adverse consequences. No curl of the monkey's paw, no ironic twist. He could truly make the world he wanted. Then one day, he saw his death, which, just to be clear, was a shameful one. But he also saw what he needed to do to avoid it. But instead, he chose that death. Which begs the question, how could the price of his own life have been so great that the most powerful wizard in the world was unwilling to pay it? This Campfire Tale is brought to you by Nebula, where you can watch this and all our other shows without ads like this one for Nebula. Click the link below for more details. The origins of Merlin are slippery across various tellings. His one constant trait, ironically, being that he was a seer and a shapeshifter. Which, comes in quite handy when all the other facts about you are quite shifty in and of themselves. Some tales say that his magical powers were bestowed upon him by the union of his parents, a mortal woman and a demon. Other stories of his exploits might be a synthesis of other mythical characters, and his identity, age, and time in which he lived all change depending on who you ask. But I'm betting that very nebulousness is just the way Merlin would have liked it, and it's where we're gonna start today's tale. In the foggy, bloody history of early Britain, Merlin's magic and cunning kept him alive and at the right hand of power. It was he who masterminded the conception and coronation of King Arthur, guided the king through war and political turmoil, recruited the Knights of the Round Table, and brought King Arthur to the Lady of the Lake, who gave him the great sword Excalibur. Of course, Merlin's BFF Arthur did make some mistakes along the way. For one thing, he accidentally slept with his sister and got her pregnant. Merlin didn't save him from that, but he did let Arthur know that God was very mad about it, and as punishment, Arthur's child would destroy him and the Knights of Camelot. But not to worry, for Merlin assured the king that his death would still be an honorable one. Merlin's death, on the other hand, not so much. On top of all that, Arthur was getting married to Guinevere, the daughter of another king, even though Merlin foresaw that this match would bring great misfortune to Camelot. But then Merlin, quite passive-aggressively actually, told the king there was probably no point in him trying to convince him of that. For if Arthur's heart wanted Guinevere, his head would not be swayed. Then at the wedding feast, something odd occurred. Just as the supper was about to be served, a stag burst into the hall, pursued by a hunting dog and a panicked young woman, shouting that the dog was hers and that she needed it back. Tiring of this right quick on his special misfortune-bringing day, Arthur promptly had her escorted out. Now, if the story ended there, the rest of Merlin's life probably would have been very different. Heck, maybe he would have got bored of magic and got really into STEM or something. We'll never know. Because instead, he knelt and whispered into the king's ear, "Bring her back." Nimue was her name, and Merlin was in love. Because for all of his vaunted power, his mythic wisdom, and his incredible magic, the true secret of Merlin was that at his core, he was kinda basic. AKA, he was an old man infatuated with a conventionally attractive young woman, and didn't really know how to handle that except to never leave her alone, ever. At first, Nimue tolerated his advances as meaningless, but when she came to understand just how serious he was, she made it clear that she was not interested at all. Could have been the age difference, right? Could have been having a demon for a dad. Who knows? He just wasn't her type. But Merlin neither listened nor let up. He wanted her, even though he knew it was a bad idea. Worse than bad, actually, for he had seen the future, and he knew that if he didn't stop bothering this woman, he would die. And still, Merlin's infatuation was such that he took a deep breath and said, "Welp, guess I'm dying then." He then went to Arthur and told the king everything he needed to know to govern Britain for the rest of his life, because Merlin was hitting the road. "Surely," Arthur said, "if you can see your pursuit of this woman will lead to your death, then you can just avoid it by leaving her alone. Plus, it kind of seems like that's something you ought to do anyway, right?" Merlin sighed and thought about his best friend's words for a good long while. Nope, can't do it." Thus did the great wizard Merlin bail on Camelot in pursuit of an age-inappropriate girl who wanted nothing to do with him. Wherever Nimue went, Merlin followed, always asking, pleading, begging if the two of them could just, do stuff. Her answer, by the way, was always no. Yet he still did not leave her side. When she crossed the English Channel to France, he was there asking, what would make her happy? "To be rid of you," she said. To which Merlin merely laughed and replied, really though. Nimue was exhausted, and not just a little afraid of what this powerful devil's son could do to her. But if he would not leave her alone, and he'd made it pretty clear at this point that he wouldn't, then she would see what she could get out of the wizened wizard. And there was one thing about Merlin that truly did interest her. The magic, of course. She wanted the magic. "If you teach me," she told him, "then, well, maybe I could see a world where I could start to not be 100% repulsed by your constant unwanted attention." "Uh-huh," Merlin said. "So you're saying there's a chance." So as they traveled together, from France back to England, he taught her the ways of magic. First, just trifles, glowing orbs and what have you. But then, when he saw how interested she was, genuinely interested in him, of course, he got her into the heavier stuff. How to cast spells, and how to break them. Then, when she asked, even more intrigued, if there was such a thing as a spell that could not be broken, Merlin cried, "Ho-ho, are there?" and then showed her the unbreakable ones. Nimue was overcome with delight. She laughed and clapped her hands, and it was a vision from Merlin's most wonderful dreams. Now he had taught her everything he knew, and remembering her promise that she one day might be less revolted by him, he brought her to a cave, elaborately appointed with candles, gold, blankets, and cushions. It was there, in that special place, he hoped to take his heart's desire by her hand and feel what it was like to be loved. "Maybe just walk a little deeper," Nimue said. "I'll be right behind you." He did. Then she used her newly learned unbreakable magic to seal him in a cave behind a mountain of impassable rock. She sighed in relief and rode away. Merlin spent the rest of his life in that cave. It was the shameful death he had foreseen and done nothing to prevent. Though, really, it wasn't like he missed anything in the outside world. He had seen the future, like all of it. He knew that he would be remembered as a collection of conflicting legends, and he knew that we would never really know if he existed at all. But here's one thing we do know. The man that could change his shape, and the shape of nations, chose not to learn the lesson taught in so many other Arthurian legends of old. People should repent for their moral failings. But not Merlin. Nah, not for anything. He'd rather starve to death in a cave than stop creeping. And who knows why that was? I mean, to figure out something as complex as that, you'd probably have to be a magician. But Merlin isn't the only person that can see into the future. Oh, it's true. Because did you know that you actually have the power to pierce the veil of time itself and watch all of our episodes ad-free at least 24 hours before they air on YouTube via our creator-owned and operated streaming service Nebula? Well, abracafrickin-dabra. Actually, with the help of a bunch of our creator friends, we just ramped up an awesome new feature over there called Nebula First. Basically, it works like this. Thanks to the support from Nebula, we can produce and release our Extra History series episodes on Nebula at least a full week before they get posted to YouTube. However, this time round, we are super excited to announce that you can actually go watch the first episode of our brand new Napoleon in Egypt Extra History series 2 whole weeks early, right now. The French invasion of Egypt in 1798 is sometimes treated like a sideshow in the Napoleonic Wars, just one of many rungs in a ladder that helped Napoleon to power while inventing Egyptology as a byproduct. But this view is vastly underselling it as an event. It's not only frequently cited as the first modern colonialist project, it will also set some patterns that will look all too familiar to the more modern Western interventions in the Middle East. And that is just the beginning. You also get a ton of other great Nebula First content from creators like Jacob Geller, Mariana Vieira, Legal Eagle, and more, all posting their videos earlier than you'd see them on YouTube. Ooh, and one of the other Nebula First shows I can't get enough of is the globe-trotting giant that is Jetlag Race Till the End of the World. It is literally the coolest travel game show, and I cannot wait to see how Season 5 wraps up. If you haven't seen it yourself yet, you are seriously missing out. Go Team Sam and Toby, I believe in you! Plus, that's on top of the other exclusive shows we've done over there, and the Nebula classes that Jeff and I both made, which honestly, we are super proud of. I can't wait to hear what y'all think of those. Now, Nebula is normally priced at a pretty darn reasonable $50 a year, but if you sign up using our link below, you'll get Nebula for only $2.50 a month when you sign up for an annual plan. Oh, and I did the math so you don't have to. That's around 40% off the regular price, which is, mwah, chef's kiss. Look, I could go on and on about all the amazing content on Nebula, but I really feel like it's something you should experience for yourself because it's kind of changed the way that I watch most of my stuff on the internet these days. Not to mention using our link to sign up really does help support myself and the rest of the EC crew make the content you love, while also helping us not be entirely dependent on YouTube for our livelihoods. That's a part I definitely like. Thank you truly so much for that, and I hope to see you over on Nebula real soon because I really think you're going to enjoy it. Say, did you ever hear the one about Skylar Holmes, Kuya Koi, Joseph Blame, Dominic Valenciana, Casey Muscha, Arclight Games, Angela Valenciana, and Ahmad Ziad Turk being fantastic legendary patrons? Because I sure did.